Meeting will come to order. Clerk, call the roll.
Mayor Manning.
Present.
Councilman Patricelli.
Present.
Councilman McGratty.
Present. Clerk, please read the minutes from our last meeting.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we dispense with the minutes of the last meeting.
Second. Second, as written. Call the roll.
Councilman Patricelli.
In favor.
Councilman McGratty.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor. Reports from officers and committees.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we will start with the presentation of the water and sewer budgets for 2019. In September, we had a budget workshop on both the water and sewer budgets with the working supervisor of those departments, David Dressel, was in attendance and went through with the council. So just a brief overview of both sides here of the budget, the revenues and expenditures. We'll do a comparison of 2018 to 19. There's a slight increase in expenditures in the 2019 budget as compared to the 2018 budget, where you see the major changes is in the pump station, which is basically out in Guilderland. So there's a large increase in expenditures out in Guilderland, and I'll be able to go through that a little bit more as we move on to the presentation here. Slight increase in the distribution portion of it, but a very relatively small increase in the water budget from 18 to 19. Here's a breakdown of the budget. With the lights on, it's a little bit difficult to see, but really the pie is split up somewhat equally in the water department. You'll see that the major part of it is personnel, which is payroll, overtime, FICA and Medicare, the fringe benefits that go along with it. It's about 27%. About 20% of it are the general costs to it, which are the taxes that need to be paid, because a lot of the infrastructure for the water department is outside of the city. So it's taxes, our engineering, our auditor costs, those types of things. That's about 19%. The insurances, health insurance, liability insurance, workers' comp, life insurance, so on. Again, about another 19%. Our debt and reserves, so transfers to the reserves and the debt amount for the water department is about 18% of the total budget. Our filter plant itself, so this is the chemicals at the filter plant, any equipment that needs to be used there, that's 10% of the total budget. 4% of it is the reservoir, dam, hydro, and pump station, so basically Guilderland. So 4% of this total expenditure budget is for expenses out in Guilderland, and then 3% is the distribution. Distribution is usually pretty low, but anything that happens in the distribution system would be covered by the reserve. So if we had a water, major water break or something along those lines that needed to be repaired, it would be repaired using the reserve for repairs and not come out of the distribution. So that's really for basic costs, clamps, fire hydrant, or anything that we need to replace throughout the year. So very, very small number. And again, if we go back, they're all based off of these numbers here, so you'll be able to break down the percentage. Our water budget revenues, metered revenues, result in about $135,000 of our revenue. The arsenal, we were able to increase the amount that we would receive from the arsenal this year. There's two reasons for that. One, we've increased the rate slightly. I'll touch on that as well. And the second one is they are using more water. So they've added a little bit of second shift, so that they've had a little bit more water production in there. The amount that we charge Guilderland for the purchase of raw water increases each year. We've been a little bit behind on how much we increased that in the budget. So the $840,000 is the correct amount. Unmetered, so this is the flat rate that most of our residents see here. It's a slight downtick in the unmetered, and again, that's just to show accurate numbers for what we have based on some changes that have happened to certain parcels, and I will touch on that at the end as well. One of the main percentage increases that you'll see here is how much we bring in interest off of this. So Previously, we would bring in interest of about $10,000, but it's been much more lately, and that's for those that pay their bills late, they get re-levied, and there's an interest that goes on to that, so that covers a portion of that. Sale of power is from our hydroelectric facility out in Gilda. This year we budgeted $85,000, but National Grid came in and did some electrical upgrades to their system, and our system was not ready for it yet. I had a conversation with them again today. We're making our upgrades, so we should be okay next year to be able to run it full 100%. But in 1982, National Grid contacted the city of Waterville and said that they were going to be upgrading their system to 13.2, which is the change in the electric out at the hydro. In 1997, they again contacted the city in January of 1997, saying that again they were going to upgrade it, and they were going to upgrade it by May of 1997, and the city needed to start putting the wheels in motion to be able to do it at the same time. In 2017, National Grid actually made those upgrades. So the city had made some expenses back then, had put it together, and then in 2017, National Grid came in. The changes that the city made were obsolete at the point, and so now we're working to make those upgrades now. So this year we have run under what we would have expected for our hydro. So our sale of power was estimated at $85,000 for the year. It's going to be below that, probably more in the $60,000 range. So we did have to reduce it moving forward, but we should be able to run at 100% for all of 2018. Excuse me, 2019. So in 2018, the total revenues and expenditures were $2,839,662. For 2019, this budget for revenues and expenditures is $2,872,000. So it's an increase from 18 to 19 of $32,338, which is a percentage increase in the budget, so a spending increase of 1.13%, but there is no rate increase. Those increases are covered by the revenues that will be coming in that we just went over. So again, no increase in the water rate. So in this water budget, once again, New York State Office of the State Comptroller has asked us to show expenses instead of showing it as a transfer. So in previous years, prior to 2018's budget, we used to show it as a transfer from the water fund to the general fund, but now it's shown by specific expenses, and so you'll see that in the budget when you take a look at it as well. We increased in reservoir maintenance. So we did not have a reservoir maintenance line previously, and we've increased that to $78,000 for this year. Majority of that is, not the majority of it, a portion of that comes out of our filter plant budget, where we used to have copper sulfate, which is a chemical that helps to decrease algae. That's been moved into there, but we have about $70,000 in there to help with some reservoir maintenance, and we're working with Gilderland and the Department of Health and Engineers right now to determine what's the best course of, for utilizing those funds. So brought up last year in one of these budget meetings, and again this year, our in-town metered rate was $3.95 at a minimum of $395, but our out-of-town rate was $3.93 with a minimum of $393. Obviously, that's pointed out that out-of-town people with a meter are paying less than in-city. Didn't seem fair, so this proposes an increase to $4 per 1,000 gallons with a minimum of $400. Very few that affects, but there are some, and that's part of where the increase comes in for the arsenal as well. So they will be charged that amount. Also added into this is that vacant properties will pay the full rate of the water. So we get the majority of what is covered in this, in our water budget for expenses, is the infrastructure. Not the actual usage of water, but the infrastructure. And so vacant properties are not exempt from that. That's what is both in the budget and in the ordinance. There is no increase, again, in the city flat rate or metered rate. So no property owners within the city would see an increase in their rate. That was the water budget. This is the sewer budget. Again, comparing the 2018 to the 2019, an increase in total expenditures, a little bit more of a percentage of increase there. And that increase is really spread out amongst all areas here. So it's, with a total budget of $1.2 million for the sewer fund, $560,000 of that is the payment to Albany County for processing our sanitary and our combined sewer. So that's the major cost. And then the other general parts that are in there that equal that $613,000. That's also our MS4 coordination, which is our stormwater, and having a Albany County piece to that as well. And we see a slight increase in personnel, a slight increase in the insurances, and an increase in the transfers and debt. And the main reason for that is for transfers to the reserves. So in previous years, we've spoken about, and it's been brought up, that the water fund has been helping out the general fund to be able to balance the taxes. The truth really is that the water fund has taken on a lot of the liabilities that are for the sewer fund. Last year, we made some changes to the sewer fund to start to show those liabilities a little bit more, and this year we show the obligations even more. And that is broken down in the budget. So there's two parts to the sewer budget that are added in there that were not in there previously. Again, it's the transfers to the reserves. It's $10,000 for each reserve. The accrued liability, which is for retirees getting paid out their leave benefits, for equipment, and for repairs reserves. The majority of repairs reserves that we do end up coming from the sewer fund. So the sewer fund does have to cover that portion. The other piece that's in there is there's personnel obligations for the sewer fund as well, and the sewer fund has never made a contribution to the retirement system for those obligations. So it's now a portion, small percentage of the retirement fund as well. So again, it's a little bit tough to see here, but you can guess what that big green piece of the pie is. That about almost 50%, 48%, and again, that's for auditor costs, contingency, and the Albany County Sewer District, which is not called the Sewer District anymore, and our MS4 coordination, which is our stormwater coordination. So the majority of this is to process either our CSO or sanitary, or to have our stormwater. The remainder of it, 27%, is personnel, payroll, overtime, the retirement costs, and again, the fringe benefits. 12% of the budget is insurance, health, workers' comp, liability insurance, and so on. And then 13% of it is debt payments and transfers to the reserves. So this is how the breakdown is shown for the revenues for the sewer budget. Again, the metered amount will show an increase here. The arsenal amount, again, we're able to show a large increase for the arsenal because they are, again, using more water, and the rate will go up for them again. Column E stays rather flat because there's a certain amount that it costs them and how many parcels they have that use our sewer. The unmetered, so that's, again, what most of us use here in residential, a slight increase there. And our interest, once again, goes up, showing an accurate number based off of those that don't pay on time. So how do these metered and unmetered increases, as well as the arsenal, happen? Well, it's because there's a proposed increase of 4% in the sewer rate to cover these costs. The 2018 total revenues and expenditures was $1.15 million. In 2019, that increases to $1.23 million. It's an increase from 2018 to 19 of $86,000, which is an increase in the budget or expenditures of roughly 7.5% in the total budget. To reach that number of 7.5%, we need to increase the sewer rate by 4%. Now, there is a way to balance this budget without having to have an increase in the sewer rate. It was brought to my attention in late 2017 that previously there was a way for those that had a multi-unit property to be able to request to not have to pay their water and sewer bill for a property that was vacated and that they didn't fill. If we were to charge, what I would say improperly, for those, or appropriately, for all units, that would reduce the increase in the rate to a 1% increase in rate. So again, there's some folks that have a two-family home. There's only a person living in the first floor, nobody in the second floor. They had previously been able to not have to pay a water or sewer bill for that apartment, for that unit. If that was done away with, we could relatively balance the budget without having an increase.
Roughly how many units?
Do you remember how many units it was?
I don't know.
That includes it includes the vacants as well. So it's about $200 for the rate, and it's $33,000. So say 16, 17.
I thought there was a conversation before that those units were paying.
They're not paying which units?
A two-family house with a flat that's upstairs isn't being paid or charged now.
They're not being charged now. We stopped it moving forward. That we no longer allow for them to not pay moving forward. So when I took over as general manager, somebody had sent in a request asking that they don't have to pay the water and sewer bill for the second floor, and that's when we stopped allowing that. But those that have already been approved to do that are still on that.
Will they be grandfathered in, or will they?
We looked at it as them being grandfathered in, but this is the opportunity to make that determination. Now, in full disclosure, there's no policy within the city that was adopted by the general managers previously, and there's no council policy or legislative approval that says that those flats don't have to pay water and sewer, but it was previously allowed.
Well, then how could you stop something that wasn't approved and allow something that still wasn't approved before?
So I stopped it from happening because I wasn't able to find any documentation that said that it could happen, and this is the opportunity to change that moving forward with the bill. So my suggestion is to do that. That's totally up to the council if we want to do that. But again, if we, there is a public hearing next week that will take place where people can be heard in regards to that. But again, to be able to cover the increase in expenditures in this fund without having to increase the rate, we can do so by making all units pay the full amount for the water.
But one question on that too, we can talk about it later, but are all units created equally? In other words, is it,
No.
I mean, there's not a blank way of handling. Some of them are truly vacant, and there's got to be something. There's, the power's disconnected somehow or another, or whatever. I think that was part of it before.
And we had an issue when I was in codes that it was actually, I believe, zoned for a three-family. It was upstairs and downstairs and then a garage apartment. And they wanted to turn off the service to the garage and they didn't use it anymore. And when we did an investigation, we found out there was a subject that was living there, and they said, well, he's a nephew, he stays from time to time, but he doesn't actually live there.
Right.
So,
It never uses a water.
and I'm not saying that everybody falls in that
Right.
category, but I
Right,
think
exactly.
due diligence is certainly something that we need to look at.
And you don't have the manpower to go and constantly be checking to correct some units or whatever.
Sure.
Comment? This subject? Same subject? Yeah, go ahead.
Well, in the past, I've owned quite a bit of property, and the rule always was, when the water service was turned off, there was a minimum charge,
Yeah.
because we did have the service going to the building. Now, I don't know of any legislation that was passed to change that. Is that still in effect?
So the sewer and water budgets that are being proposed, the ordinance and the local law, do away with that. The proposed ordinance and local law do away with a vacant property where the water has been shut off, receiving a discounted rate. And again, the reasoning behind that is the majority of the costs, nearly 90% of the costs, are infrastructure costs, not water usage costs. So by vacant property not having the water turned on, that doesn't reduce the costs to the water department. So whether we send out 2 million gallons or 1 million gallons, it still costs the same amount to run the department. Give or take that small 10% of what the water costs are to treat. So again, these are infrastructure charges for the full infrastructure, again, from raindrop to tap. Other notes from the sewer budget, again, expenses are shown fully and not as a transfer. An increase of accuracy for funding the liabilities, again with the retirement and the reserves. It is proposed a 4% increase in the flattened metered rate, and once again, if we charge what I would say appropriately for each unit or for all units, it would reduce it to roughly a 1% increase in the rate, rather than the 4% that is proposed right now. So another slide that I put on here, this has been brought up in past years. I know Councilman Patricelli asked for this last year after it, so I want to make sure that we had it ahead of time. This shows the water and sewer rates, again, at quarterly amounts for like municipalities. Again, cities and communities that govern themselves like cities, which I say that because Green Island is on here. The infrastructure and the usage are in the water and sewer. If you looked at somebody else like a town, their infrastructure charges are in their taxes and not in their water and sewer bills. So in looking at this is, and the sewer rate is the proposed new rate quarterly for this budget. Watervliet is about $89.50 per quarter for water and $47.54 for sewer. These communities that are on here are cities that are within Albany and Rensselaer County, and they're along the Hudson River and our CSO communities as well. So it's really comparing as much as we can apples to apples. With these numbers on here, we are below the average for like communities for water and sewer rates. So in comparing us to the other communities that are around us, we are lower in average. If you were to combine the water and sewer rates together, we are lower than Green Island, Cohoes, and Rensselaer. The only two communities up here that we're not lower than in total is Troy and Albany. And what you would find in looking at Troy and Albany's rates is that for commercial and industrial properties, it's much, much higher. And that helps to offset the cost of residential. We obviously don't have as much commercial or industrial parcels in the city of Watervliet, so we're not able to do that. But those are the only two communities that charge less in total for water and sewer rate.
Both also have water authority.
They do both also have water authorities, yes.
None of these cities are metered.
Cohoes is actually metered.
Albany's metered.
Cohoes is metered. Albany is metered. Cohoes and Albany, anybody who's metered, they charge a meter fee as well. And those meter fees are averaged in there. So Cohoes has a meter fee averaged in there.
Mayor, what did you mean by the authority? What bearing would that have on the difference of rates? Is there any?
Well, they're pulling the operation of the water department out of the city. It's known as a
Right.
utility. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
Yeah,
it's just more on.
It allows them to be less expensive because they're not, you can't use this, they can't merge the two funds.
Now, not being a statistician, but would the metered cities, and I don't know about Green Island, I don't know if they're metered or not, but I know, like, say, Cohoes and Albany, or let's take Cohoes, for example. $84 is the average, I'm assuming, for a number of households divided by something, and that's the average. But is that a
That's their set residential rate. So that's based off of their set residential rate. So their minimum that can be charged based off the meter.
Oh,
It's
so-
not a typical bill. It's a typical rate. So if one house uses more than the other, you just multiply it times the rate.
That's what they're gonna be charged even if they don't use it, regardless of how much. There's a set,
They have minimums, as Sharon said.
$84 minimum, they're gonna be charged per year.
The minimum is usually based off of multiplying rate times something, yes.
Did that answer your question, or?
I'm not sure how to think about it. I'm just trying to, I mean, because everybody's always saying, you know, their major complaint is, they pay this other house in Cohoes, they pay less than, you know, for their two-family house than whatever we do. So I don't
Right,
know
so-
how that would be.
So, for accuracy purposes, Cohoes' water and sewer bills are higher than the city water. So, if you compare to yourself, you have a two-family in Waterville, there's a two-family in Cohoes, the home in Cohoes is paying more for water and sewer than Waterville is. Based on these numbers. These are numbers that were given to us by these communities. And I don't want to take full credit for this. Sean Ward had a lot to do with this as well. He helped me to put this together, and he does it each year.
So we have a full public hearing on this next meeting, so this will be available. Look it over, come back with more questions.
Just I have two more questions.
So again, today is the presentation. Tonight's agenda is publishing for the public hearings at next week's meeting. The public hearings will be at next week's meeting and a reading of the local law and ordinance. The local law and ordinance should be on the website tomorrow. You can contact the city clerk if you'd like a copy of it as well. And then it's able to be voted on November 1st. It doesn't technically have to be approved or passed on November 1st, but we do prefer to have it done that day because that's when those rates start to take effect. So the rates that are being talked about here are November 1st through October 31st. If you'd like to have it.
Yeah, just two more. We had a study done on transmission line, I believe. Has that been completed?
Do not have a study being done.
So there's no study. So when was the last time we actually, you're talking about the infrastructure from the reservoir to here, and any major break or anything would come out of the reserve. When was the last time it was maybe looked at, walked, inspected, or whatever? How do we know it's not, we don't have a leak on it, something like that? Not a major one, of course, but you know, something.
Well, we do know that there's leaks there. We do lose water from Guilderland to the surface reservoir on Lakeland.
So we
know that there is. We tried to put in with our grant, our EFC grant, to be able to do a leak detection within there, but EFC would not allow for us to do that. They don't allow for studies to be done through the grant. But we do have work that's being done to the service, to the transmission main, excuse me. The blow-off valves are still set to be casted. Some of them they're concrete, but they're very deteriorated. But further study does need to be done to detect the leaks to be able to either reline it or whatever it might be to dig it. And then the next part of that is access, because of where it runs. It runs through the pine bush, it runs through some wooded areas, through
Underneath the airport.
Colony, and it runs under the airport, of course, easements all throughout there. Actually, I went with David to do a mark out, and it was on I-90. Because we run under I-90 as well, ahead of the thruway. So those are things that do need to be done. Since we weren't able to do it through the grant, we will have to look into doing the leak detection study is probably the most important to do out there. We do know that there's leaks. Even if we fix them all, there's always going to be a little bit of loss of water in there. But at least it's no longer a wooden
And the other one was, we've had several emails going back and forth about complaints about smell and odor and taste, I guess, or something like that. Honestly, I haven't had any experience in, from my tap.
Right.
But other people have, and they're all over the place. So, is there any kind of answer to that for reason or?
So what
time of year?
Councilman Patricelli is referring to is there were several complaints that I received, and from what I understand, there was a boatload more on Facebook. So we have received complaints. Councilman Patricelli told me about it. I asked him to get actual addresses so that we could get out and test. For every address that we received, we did go out. Members of the water department went out and tested the water. There was no issues in the testing of the water. We test for two things. We test for chlorine residual, which all drinkable water is tested with or is treated with chlorine. So there's a certain level that it needs to be, not too high, not too low, so that it's still doing what it's supposed to do. All levels of chlorine were within that proper range, and no spikes. The next thing that we test for is turbidity, which is, for lack of better terms, dirty water. And so those were what we were getting a lot of the complaints on. We only had one complaint that it smelled like chlorine, but about 5 or 6 others were that it had a musty or moldy scent or smell. All of them also passed through the turbidity, not even showing above average levels of it. So that brings us to what could be causing this. So there's a couple of different things to look at. 2 of the properties that we were called to are 2 family properties. And one complaint was from the 2nd floor, one was from the 1st floor. And so we tested both and interviewed the residents in both floors. So where a person on the 2nd floor said that their water smelled bad or tasted bad, the person on the 1st floor said they had no complaints. And that happened in 2 of the cases that we looked at. So sometimes it can be an anomaly either by the person or the major thing that we've been in touch with the Department of Health to see if they had any recommendations as well. And I've had this happen before. I get in the shower and all of a sudden the shower water smells a little bit off. And then I look at my shower head. It needs to be cleaned because there is, sometimes they'll say hard water. Well, there is, things in the water that can cause it to be that way. So there's 3 advisements that they have, and so I'll relay them to you. First is make sure that you're cleaning off your faucets and your heads that you have on your water, because that can be a part of it as well. So if we were going to do a bacteria test in your house, we would take the head of the faucet off, because there's bacteria that's on there from your hands hitting it, dirty plates hitting it, whatever it might be. So taking those off and cleaning those, not regularly, but making sure that you do that at least annually is a good practice. The other one is, if you have something that's doing that, let your water run a little bit. Sometimes it can be, like we flush our mains in the city to help to clear out any sediment that might be in there. It's recommended that you do the same with your internal piping. So make sure that you run your water a couple times a year, let it run, let it flush out, because there could be some sediment in there too that settles into yours. Always suggested that you run your water for a couple minutes first before drinking, because it's sitting in your pipes. And then the last thing is to flush your hot water tanks. So a lot of times the hot water sitting in the tank can also do the same thing, so flushing that works the same way. So we're unable to find any issues in the water where we had complaints from, but those are the recommendations that not only come from the city, but from the Department of Health.
How do you flush your hot water?
Emptying the hot water tank and then
Let it run for about
Just draining the bottom.
5 minutes. You'll see what it do about 1 or 2 draining the bottom.
right. There's some hands in the crowd. Should
Yeah, go
I
ahead.
answer questions? Lois?
Okay, I was just wondering, do we have a frequently asked questions section on the website?
You do not.
Maybe that would be a good thing to put on there. What can I do if my water doesn't smell good or taste good, or
Very good.
those suggestions would be great.
Thank you. Paul?
The only other thing I didn't see that was in the budget, is there an allotment or anything that is for cleaning and maintenance of the reaping grass out of the reservoir?
So the portion of the budget that's for reservoir maintenance, there's $78,000 that was put in there. That previously, that was not a line item previously. So that's part of it. We're working with Gilliland right now on a couple of different tasks to complete out at the reservoir to improve the quality of the raw water, which again will improve the quality of the drinking water and reduce the amount of treatment that it needs at the plant. So,
I was just curious what kind of went with his question is that, has anybody stuck the camera down through the lines at least to see if those grass and chestnuts and everything that are up there that need to be reaped out have infiltrated down through the body and stuff up, or if it's as wide open as it should be?
yeah, so we have screens and everything that stop that from getting into the pipe before it brings into the city. But we did just have a study done. It's completed. Waiting on the final deliverable of it. They did a study out there of the chestnuts to see where they're prevalent and what the best way is to get rid of it.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. While he's breaking down, Scott, is there any old business?
There is none.
Okay, go to new business.
In new business, we have the first reading of ordinance number 1987, an ordinance of the City of Waterville providing that the code of the City of Waterville, Chapter 260, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 260-15, Trucks over certain weights excluded, be amended.
Motion to accept ordinance number 1987 as written.
All right, I'll second.
Okay, so is there any discussion, Chief, you want to talk about this a little bit? Or?
Yes, sure. We talked about this a little bit at the public comment period at the previous meeting. It appears that we have an influx of large vehicles in the city of Waterville that are being parked on residential streets. To be specific, RVs, large RVs, heavy-duty trailers, steamrollers on those trailers, backhoes on those trailers, dump trucks, sometimes full, sometimes empty. So I think in order for us to improve not only the durability of our streets, but in order to ensure the aesthetic looks of our streets, as well as we are a city that is landlocked and parking is a premium. And when you talk about a heavy-duty truck with a trailer attached to it, you're probably talking upwards of 30 feet of parking spot that is no longer available on those lots. So in order to keep that as, I guess, as accessible as we can to the people that live in those areas, I felt the need for us to draft this ordinance with Mr. Eubank in order to try to give us an avenue to cut down on those vehicles parked on our city streets.
Okay. So,
Good idea. What are we going to do how are we going to tell the people who own these vehicles, besides giving him the first $100 fine, the second $200 fine? Are we going to go out and reach these people and let them know about this ordinance before we slap them?
Yeah, I don't have an issue with us documenting, drafting some kind of a warning notice that goes onto these vehicles or to the addresses in which they belong. The issue that we have is that some of these companies are registered in other areas. So they have a Troy operating address, they have a Malta operating address, so it's not always easy for us to contact the owners of these vehicles in order to go through that education process. Listen, if a boat trailer comes back to 1345 2nd Avenue, I have no issue with stuffing something in the mailbox saying, hey, you need to move that by such and such a date, or we're going to ticket it and we're going to tow it. Similar to the way we do for abandoned vehicles right now. The issue that I have is that some of these companies aren't necessarily reputable companies. Some of them are shadow companies. Some of these vehicles are registered to people that have been deceased for quite some time. And then we run into the problem that we have similar to the vacant building problem. How do we hold these people accountable? And I don't think that they should be given the same kind of leeway that somebody who's been a city resident for 25 years that has a boat trailer in front of their house. If the council has some suggestions on how we handle it broadly, I'd be certainly willing to entertain it. I just don't know how to handle every trailer the same way.
Maybe for the first month, you hand out citations on the trucks, put them on the windshield, and then after the first month is over.
The issue is that we lose accountability even with the traffic or the parking tickets that we put on there. A trailer itself with a boat that's unattached, there's not really a place to put a ticket on it. So people easily come into the finance office all the time and say, I got this reminder notice, I never got a ticket. It's going to be similar with the warning notice that we give them. There's not really a place for us to put on that vehicle that warning to make it evident to the owner of that vehicle that there's a notice on it. And they can easily say, I never got it.
Well, we attempted, that's my thought, is we attempted to tell these people prior to that $100 ticket, $200 ticket.
Right. I think, from our aspect, tracking becomes an issue. How do I know that I didn't issue this ticket to this vehicle that parked in front of 1343 today, but tomorrow is parked in front of 1313?
So we just go and hand them out, and when the month is over, then we did diligence.
So then it becomes not per vehicle, it becomes as of this time frame. We are no longer doing the warnings. We are going to ticket and possibly tow the vehicle.
Some sort of warning.
Okay.
From what first month or whenever we adopt this.
And we can educate through the Facebook page as well and say, hey, here's what we're doing. And moving forward, we'll have a grace period. And then after that grace period, you're going to get ticketed and quite possibly. Yeah, I have no issues.
Do we need to change the document to include a grace period?
I don't think so. I think we can just leave if we add the grace period in there, there's no need to change the ordinance. We keep the ordinance the way that it is. We just internally put that grace period in there.
I think the problem, to answer your question, just my personal perspective on it, the problem that you're going to have is you're going to treat, one vehicle owner differently than you are another vehicle. And that could potentially pose, an issue.
Under the time window thing, that doesn't do that. We'll treat them all the same for 30 days.
I think one can have a different interpretation on that also. The fact that you give a time frame doesn't mean that the person who gets a ticket subsequent to the expiration of that time frame, had notice of that, or maybe it's first time that he or she received that ticket. But to answer your question, I have to give that some thought. It's easy to say, internally we can give a grace period, not place it in the ordinance, but I think it's a matter of how you want to go about enforcing it. Really what it comes down to. One thought is to treat everybody the same, issue the ticket, and have it worked out in court.
That's right. Let the court worry about the grace period?
Yeah, I'll be honest with you,
I'm not in favor of that.
Amanda has a good recommendation. We can pass the ordinance tonight and make it effective 11-1, 12-1, and then use up until that date as the education.
Well, the ordinance is going to be effective if it's passed today.
Still has to be filed, all right?
No.
Doesn't?
It's effective today.
Section 3 of the ordinance states that this ordinance shall take effect immediately.
Let's change it to will take effect on 11/1.
Yeah, sure.
Do you think that's a sufficient amount of time?
Pick a date, round date, not like the 7th or something.
I'd rather see it at 12.
12/1, going once.
All right, so here's the issue with 12-1. What happens if it snows between now and 12-1? We want to go on. Because usually what we do is, if we know there's a storm coming, we go around and we whack every unattached trailer, we whack, cars that we believe are abandoned. That's going to take that out of our arsenal if we wait that long.
They have the farmer's almanac, and you look for the
What's our meeting in November?
First 15, 20.
November 1st.
The first one? First.
I'd like to interject. By December 1st, a lot of those vehicles will disappear because the paving season just about over. Would you say?
Well, not necessarily. It depends if they can find work down south after that point of the year. If not, they just take the vehicles around.
But I mean, you know the plant's closed.
Sure. Yep.
Just to be clarification, you're saying you're going to find a vehicle, you're going to put a notification that this is the new policy in the city. Then a week later, the vehicle is still there. You're going to ticket it or give it another, wait that 30 days?
Well, I think based on this other plan that we have, that if we make it effective this date, we can do whatever we want up until that date. But as of that date, that's when it takes effect. That's when they're going to get a ticket. That's when it's going to be done.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
Because you're not solving the problem, like Paul just said. Boats will be gone.
Plus, you're giving out warnings or you're giving notice to an ordinance that has technically been adopted but not legally effective. So, I don't agree with that approach. I mean, I welcome the suggestions and I think it's great that we have all these ideas and I know we've worked on this a lot. I pondered over this, as you know, since the first time that you asked me to try to put it together. But I certainly understand the issue of having residents becoming aware of this issue. One thing that we can do is, although not required, we can have a public hearing on it so it can be advertised. I don't know if that's going to solve the issue, but I don't think a grace period.
So I think we run into the same problem, right? If timeliness is the issue and we push this down the road and we have a public hearing in 2 weeks, we're still running into the same issue that's 2 more weeks that these vehicles are going to be on the street, and then the problem's going to resolve itself.
I mean, there's nothing that prevents from issuing the ticket, going to court, and solving the same issue by saying, hey, this is going to be your first warning. This is your note. I think that's the proper way to do it.
I got an issue with that though, because if somebody pleads not guilty for that ticket, in order to get in front of the judge, that means the officer that wrote that ticket now gets overtime for going to that hearing.
Yeah, but that's not. Yes, but not if there's a conference and that it's either withdrawn or it's ECOD, or it doesn't necessarily mean that just because someone's summoned to court, the next step is actually to be a trial. Possibly could, but the city also has the ability to withdraw the charge.
I just don't see that that's the best way of handling residents. Some of them are innocent, they don't know the rules or whatever, and some of them are not. But I just think that somehow or another, there should be a little bit of warning for it and let them know to get it off the street. If it resolves itself because of the seasonal, then it resolves itself.
Well, I think, and I don't mean to push this any further than it has to, but I think there's a couple phases of this problem, right? We have unattached trailer, which is already an ordinance. So, when you're talking about the resident that wasn't aware of that, that's one thing. But we're talking about an unattached industrial trailer with a backhoe on it or a small steamroller. That's somebody that's taking advantage of the system, and I think the penalty should be, a little bit swifter with that than, somebody that left their boat out in front of the apartment.
I actually disagree, Mark. I think it's actually the opposite. The person with a large truck with an attached trailer is allowed to do that. We just don't want it to be that way. But the person who has that boat trailer or that utility trailer or something knows they shouldn't have had that, and they've been allowed to, let's say, let that trailer stay there, possibly all summer long. I know before you say that there's a problem with maybe marketing, but they're well aware of the fact that they'll ship you off the streets and they should have had someplace to put them. But a person with a trailer attached to it, he's just been allowed to do that. But there's no law that said, or there was nothing on the law or the books that say he couldn't. So he's not taking advantage of anything. We're just saying we don't want that to continue. So yeah, that's the one. But the people with the trailers, or those unattached trailers or RV, well, maybe not the RVs, but that's a different one. But with the boat trailers and all like that, they probably already know, and they just been ignored. We both know some of them have been on the streets for months.
All right, Paul, got something on this subject?
We're going back and forth as far as people that own a camping trailer or something that they're keeping out there, or an RV that's out there, and a commercial vehicle that's out there. But everybody that has something that's out there is a resident. So if we were to just draft something up to send to every single resident and put onto the website, then you're notifying the people that have one now and may at some point get one later on. And the second part of that is, why can't we take and charge a certain amount for a rental fee or rental fee or something like that down by the on the other side of the bathroom down there as a park for these vehicles that, I'm not saying they're commercial vehicles, they have a business, they need to do what they do, but for a camping vehicle or something that they're not going to use any time, why can't they pay a certain amount per month to leave it in the city down there locked up?
Okay. That's outside the scope of this. Well, there's one more.
All right, I just was wondering in terms of notification, the possibility of putting this out today or whenever, like soon, and then giving everybody 30 days notice. And
We already discussed that. And he doesn't like that.
No,
30 days notice. I was just saying, I mean, we could like ticket everybody or like put something on all the vehicles. Just give them 30 days, and then at the end of it, rather than waiting until November 1st or December 1st. Yeah. I mean,
you know, one possible way, and we probably already talked about this, but excuse me if I'm being redundant. If you decide to pass it today, you pass it today, pass it today. And then it's within the police department's discretion when it is that you want to enforce it. Okay? Just like any other matter where an officer has discretion for stopping a motor vehicle or not issuing a ticket or not. And then if the city can somehow, whether it's a mailing, whether it's on the website, notify the public that this is, you know, the ordinance has been passed and that the police department will start enforcing this ordinance at a certain date.
In the first week in November, we have a mass mailing that goes out to all property owners, the water bills. Within the water bills, we do have we have paperwork in there, and we can add that into that, notifying everybody that they're no longer allowed to park these vehicles or whatever it might be on permit.
Great idea.
And if that was to be the case, we likely, either the way that the ordinance said it, the discretion of the police department, or it could be, legislation could be tabled until that time.
We can do it that way. And then the letter just says, as of October X, the law went in effect. FYI.
Just FYI.
So it'll go out in the newsletter that's in the water bills.
What are we talking here? Like 50 trucks? Max.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, this is, we have to burden the whole city.
One more suggestion.
Go ahead.
How about tomorrow morning, or sometime tomorrow, I hear my phone ring in golden tones of Chief Spain come over, telling me that as of 12 midnight, the 12th of October, parking of certain vehicles are no longer permitted between the hours of 7 p.m. and 6 a.m. in the city of Waterloo.
Great idea.
Now you like my voice.
I do. I never said I did.
just wondering, it says trucks over certain weights excluded. Is there anywhere where the weight is specified? And also,
Yes, so I can answer your question. So this is just, it's an amendment to the provision of the ordinance. There are subsection A and B has already been in there. That's not being revised. So if you look at the ordinance, we can provide you a copy of it. There is certain weight limitation in there. This is adding a subsection C and a subsection B. The subsection C is the prohibition of parking of certain types of vehicles with no weight limitation.
because I was going to ask, what about the tractor trailers that come through here? I mean, this is just doing the parking, right?
This is just for parking.
I think it's a good idea about the calls, but I don't think everybody is on that system either. I think a combination of both newslettering and calls.
Everybody the notice that goes out.
Use as many notifications.
As many notifications as possible, then I think we've done our due diligence on it. The other thing I wanted to ask is, for example, I don't know, this might be far-fetched, but Paul, you work for DOT, correct?
Yep.
At some point, do you ever have to take the truck home, the dump?
No.
So that never comes home. Because that case. I'm not saying it would be that, but if it was in that case, it'd be a violation.
I know there are,
But he knows about it.
there are certain people.
But if he came from work doing a snow plowing and came off,
I mean, not just that, but there are people that are in here in Waterville that have tow trucks, that they are on call all night, so they have to have that tow truck in front of their house. You can't say, you gotta go park down there and then drive all the way down to get the tow truck.
that's what they're saying.
I know, but I'm just saying that that's kind of like an emergency vehicle versus a guy that's got, you know, a backhoe that's doing blacktop. But then again, that would fall under discretion.
He said the question was asked.
Oh,
Legal mumbo jumbo, right?
I think Paul answered his own question. Discretion at the end.
All right.
I'm ready.
Well, it was moved on, as is, so. Call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli.
in favor.
Councilman McGrath.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor.
Next, we have resolution number 9540. The Council of the City of Waterville hereby authorizes and directs Scott Riley, City Clerk, and Clerk to the Council to advertise in the official newspaper of the city that a public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 18, 2018 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of hearing those persons who wish to be heard regarding proposed local law number 6 for the year 2008. A local law to amend Chapter 230, Sewers of the Code of the City of Waterville regarding establishing and imposing sewer rents for the period of November 1st, 2018 to October 31st, 2019.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on the resolution.
I second that.
This is just for the publication, so go ahead and call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor.
Councilman McGrath.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor.
Next, resolution number 9541. The Council of the City of Waterville hereby authorizes and directs Scott O'Reilly, City Clerk, Clerk to the Council, to advertise in the official newspaper of the city that a public hearing will be held on Thursday, October 18, 2018 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of hearing those persons who wish to be heard regarding proposed ordinance number 1988, an ordinance of the City of Waterville, New York, amending Chapter 266, Water of the Code of the City of Waterville regarding establishing and imposing water rates for the period of November 1st, 2018 to October 31st, 2019.
Motion to accept resolution number 9541 as written.
I'll second it.
Again, a publication, call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor.
Councilman McGrath.
In favor.
Mayor Manning.
In favor.
Next, we have resolution number 9542. The Council of the City of Waterville hereby approves and adopts the City of Waterville anti-harassment and discrimination policy and complaint form. And the Council of the City of Waterville hereby directs General Manager Jeremy A. Smith to distribute the City of Waterville anti-harassment and discrimination policy and complaint form to all employees of the City of Waterville.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we move on that resolution.
I second that.
Discussion.
Yeah, so this is, as you may recall, on September 26th, we passed the new anti-harassment and discrimination policy based upon the state of New York's mandate with respect to all employers adopting a sexual harassment prevention policy. So subsequent to the passage of our new policy, the state issued final guidance and recommended certain changes to their model policy and also the complaint board. So as a result of that, we made revisions to the new policy that was previously passed. So the proposal today, if it's passed, is for this policy to take place. It will be a new anti-harassment and discrimination policy. And I'm sure you've received a couple of emails.
When will all the classes start?
Yeah, so one of the significant changes was that it changed the date for training from the first of this year to October 9th of 2019. So employers now have until that date to provide mandated training to their employees. And I know Jeremy has looked into the manner in which we are proposing to go forward and provide that training.
We should be able to provide the training without any cost. Our liability insurance company is one of the companies that
an offer to all the other businesses in the city to send someone to our place and charge them?
Or offer it, or if it's local lesson.
Probably could be able to. You can research to see if we're able to do that. I don't know how our liability insurance company would feel about providing the training to people that aren't paying that. But I can certainly ask.
But, great, let's motion this end. Call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli?
In favor?
Councilman McGrady?
In favor.
Mayor Mann?
Favor.
Next, we have resolution number 9543. Council of the City of Waterloo hereby authorizes and directs City Clerk Scott O'Reilly to advertise in the official newspaper of the city that the City of Waterloo is publishing a notice of intent to request release of funds with the New York State Office of Community Renewal for the release of CDBG funds to undertake a project known as Waterloo Community Center Public Facilities Project.
Motion to accept resolution number 9543 as written.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
So this is a publication that must be placed in the newspaper since we have now completed all tasks associated with our grant to rehab the former Dutch Reformed Church across the parking lot here. Since all those tasks have been completed, once this is published, I believe it's 25 days from the time that it's published, the state can release the funds and we can begin the work. So publishing this will allow us to be able to, will be authorized to expend funds on the project.
Okay, call the roll.
Councilman Petroselli?
In favor?
Councilman McGrady?
In favor.
Mayor Mann?
In favor.
Mr. Mayor, that's all we have for new business this evening.
Appropriations County.
We have none.
All right. Let's go to public comment period.
At this time, the council has authorized a public comment period. If you wish to address the council, you must step forward, state your name and address for the record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the council on any matters you wish. At the end of your comment, the council may reply or choose to reply at a later date, if they so choose.
Paul Eubank, 1500 12th Avenue, Waterloo, New York. I'd like to make a comment first. I'd like to mention that the block party on 12th Avenue was very nice. Now, I also would like to make a comment to the general manager, and he could respond when I'm through with my comments. First, the taxpayers of the city of Waterloo bought the general manager, the city general, new vehicle to get around. 3/4 ton truck. A 1/2 ton wasn't good enough. A Ranger wasn't good enough. So with this vehicle, he should have observed the dust situation on 6th Avenue. Looked like a dust bowl up there. Second of all, potholes. I mentioned this in springtime. Still not addressed. Maybe the vehicle isn't getting him around. Third of all, manholes. He stated that the manholes on 3rd Avenue were going to be addressed and fixed. I don't see nothing being done. 19th Street, the lights. They're worse than they were before. Sunshine is out, the lights are on. And last but not least, National Grid. Still have a problem with these people. They just do what they say they want to do, and no one's on top. Is anyone on top of these people? Does anyone go around and see what goes on? It doesn't seem that way to me. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I come here and I complain all the time, especially the potholes. I mentioned where these this is not one pothole. An apron has to put it in this area. I think Councilman Petroselli knows about it. He knows where it is. I mentioned it to the general manager 3 months ago. Nothing's been done. Maybe I shouldn't talk. Huh? Maybe you should outlaw me from coming to the meeting.
Actually, give you 3 extra seconds.
3 extra after maker. He's a gentleman. So if the general manager could comment.
So a comment on the potholes. Potholes, once again, were filled in last week throughout the city, this week throughout the city on Wednesday. At the last 2 meetings during public comment period, I asked you if you could tell me where these potholes were, and you refused.
I
But
told
did
you,
get the
I told you
information
where
from-
the
It's my
things
turn
were
to talk,
3
Mr.
months
Yvonne.
ago.
You've had your 2 minutes.
You lied.
You've had your 2
You
minutes.
lied.
I lied.
Yes, you did lie. You lied to me before.
No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, I didn't hire you.
You want me to sit down?
Can you sit down, please?
No, I don't want to sit
Sit
down.
down, please.
Well,
Come on,
You want to
please.
have the police officer put me out?
Please.
The man lied to me.
Potholes have been filled in throughout the spring and summer by the highway department. They were out again on Wednesday, filling in potholes. I received today where the property is from a complaint on the potholes, and so the work order has gone in, and the next time that we go around and do potholes. If it is an area where it's, it's not just a pothole here or there, if it's very bumpy and everything like that, we've talked about saw cutting, getting it out there and replacing it the proper way.
I have a comment. Mrs. Kamali says thank you for filling her pothole. They're filling potholes. All I'm saying is they're out there.
The manholes, last week I stated that we would take a look at it and see if there was any that needed to be fixed, and then we would order the contractor that did the work to fix the manholes. 19th Street lights, having trouble keeping up on them. Every time we go out there, we fix them so that they're not on during the day anymore. It's the sensors on the top. We continue to send out the electrician to fix them. Maybe we need a new electrician. And National Grid, we constantly are on top of them, talking to them each day, trying to get them moving faster. We're now outpacing them with the water work. We're going past them, and our engineer has also volunteered to stay on top of them since we're in the same spot with them. So I believe that answers all the questions that I have.
Thanks. Lois, you want to go next?
Yes, thanks. Lois Gundrum, 600 Third Avenue. So I wrote this out, forgive me for reading it, so I tried to stay on my 2-minute limit. So this is for Chief Spain mainly. First of all, I'd like to express my thanks to the police department for all they do, because they are such an important part of establishing a healthy community for us here in Waterville. As a resident who grew up here, I sincerely wish to see Waterville be a safe and pleasant community to live in. For this reason, I'd like to suggest that our policemen put some of their time and efforts into getting to know the residents of this community. There was a time when officers walked the beat and got to know the people they served. I'm sure it made a big difference in the way complaints were received and dealt with. Recently, I saw policemen on bicycles during the Arsenal City Run. That was a delight to see. They could get around and easily talk with people, and they were far more accessible than if they had been in a car. I realized they were on bikes because the road was closed to vehicles during the run, but it made a big difference when there was an incident on my corner and several people, including me, wanted to speak with them. I walk around Port Schuyler regularly and value the opportunity to speak with the people who are sitting out, doing work on their front yards or walking their dogs. It is so easy to meet people and have a few minutes of casual conversation with them. Why can't our police do this and be ambassadors of goodwill in our city? Have them stop and ask people how they're doing. Our policemen get to know the people, and the people get to know the policemen. Given the very small geographic size of this city and the adequate size of our police force compared to other cities in the state, we should be able to find a way to do this at least part of the year. Troy has policemen who patrol the downtown area on foot. Why can't Waterville do something similar? I would hope that as the police budget is considered, some thought and resources will be dedicated to this possibility of making our policemen more accessible to the people on a daily basis. It will save gas, wear and tear on police vehicles, and bring our community closer together in a proactive, positive way. Thank you.
Literally 2 minutes exactly.
Thank you, Lois.
Yeah, I'm behind it 100%. I love it, and I'll be honest with you, our guys love it too. The issue that we have is that we always don't have adequate staffing in order to free a guy up to get him out of the car, to get him to walk the beat. we have 3 guys working. One is uptown, one is downtown, and one is the supervisor. And the issue is if I need to get to my car, I need to make sure that I'm not too far away. The bikes are a fantastic tool. The issue again is we don't always have the staffing to provide to get somebody on the bike because obviously the radius of them responding to calls is a lot smaller on a bike than it is in a vehicle. You know, I'm hoping that we get to the level from a staffing perspective going into 2019 where we have the availability to do that. We started and then we run into staffing issues and we have to stop it and then we start it again. The Arsenal City Run's a great PR thing for us. We usually get them out for the parades, the Memorial Day Parade, the Little League Parade. Every opportunity that we have to get the bikes out there, I'm all for doing it. And I agree with you. I think it's a fantastic tool for us, and we've got nothing but positive feedback. And every opportunity that we have to do that, I'll make sure we utilize that.
Thanks, Chief.
Especially trained to ride the bike.
Yes, not everybody can ride a bike. There's only a few certified bike owners.
It's not like just riding a bike. Anyone want to speak next?
Paul Hughes, 108 15th Street. This one's for the chief. I have been asked by many different people because I fix and donate bikes to kids, and I've had many different people that have asked, do you guys do a program anymore? Like when I was a kid, we used to have a program at Dome where the police would come down and engrave bicycles, and I didn't know if you do that once a year and if you can start doing that. And the other question I had is, if you don't, or if somebody else wants to engrave a bike, is there a way to submit that to you guys for you to keep on record for when you find a bike?
Yeah, we have a program. I'll be honest with you though, we've had a lot of turnover, so I don't know how many of our officers know that we have the program, but we do have a bike registration program where we have a metal tag that goes on the bike that adheres to the bike that you can't take off. Even if you try to take the tag off, the number stays behind. And we do have a database that was already created for us to log them in. The issue was that we didn't have a lot of people that took advantage of it, and you know, it kind of fell off, and then because of lack of utilization, we have kind of educated our new officers on how to do it.
The other comment I had is just basically for the whole council. You know, I realize that it's not really a wanted thing, or it's not a common thing to sit at the council and listen to everybody's comments before you rule on something. The only thing I ask you is that you listen to what they have to say, because there's a lot of times that we have working knowledge. You know, like you might be making a decision, but one of us works for DOT, somebody else works for that trucking company that you're going to ticket. There may be an easier way to do it, like to poll everybody and just let them know before you make that ruling, instead of just giving this one or that one a notice, because then the next person that gets that quad or something like that get made a rule on knew nothing of it, and now they get a ticket where they didn't get the grace period. So I mean, I know a lot of you welcome it, but I know some of you don't, and I just would encourage that you kind of open that up a little bit, because there's a lot of people here that have a lot of knowledge. Mr. Ubon, you know, has worked here a long, long time and has a history of knowing and remembering all the different things that have happened and the rulings that were done in years past and how it went. You know, and I encourage that you just listen to people. That's all. Thank you.
Well, you mentioned that you repair bikes and you give them away, or
Yep.
so we just drop them off to you. I have bikes.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I'm always looking, like when I have bikes or something, I'm looking to find like a contact person, a point person to say, can you find kids? I tried, you know, Bob down at the Dome, and you know, he said try the Civic Center. I've tried the Civic Center, but it's very hard to find kids that want to say I need a bike for free. My parents can't afford it. A lot of kids won't do it. They'd rather steal it. So what I usually do is find kids that are walking around and say, do you have a bike? Or if I see that they've got one that's limping down the street, they're trying to squeak it through, I'll say, here, you know, here's a brand new bike, or here's a bike that's fixed. But it is very hard to find kids that want to say, I need the bike, and I'll take it.
There's plenty of bikes behind the city garage. How long do they stay there?
I don't know how long they're there.
There's not a lot anymore. They've been cleaned out and whatever, but there's probably 3 back there now.
Where do they go? Who takes them?
They don't go anywhere.
In the garbage truck?
Sit back there unless somebody comes to clean them. They go away. They go to the wall.
There you go. Anyone next? All right. Close the public comment period. Entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Clerk call the roll.
Mayor Manning.
In favor?
Councilman Petroselli.
In favor.
Councilman McGrath.
In favor.
Meeting's adjourned.